consultant, longtime venture and angel investor leader. Those of you who have attended our previous webinars know that they have been pretty squarely centered on issues of technology and implementation of cognitive and AI applications. Today, we take on more of a business perspective, in particular, examining the current explosion of interest and investment in AI by both the venture capital industry and the incumbent technology giants. We're interested in understanding what exactly is happening in the market, and perhaps more importantly, where it might be going. Ron will be a terrific guide for all of us in sharing his analysis of the current state of the market. He brings deep experience in the business cycles of technology trends, the dynamics of market growth, and the challenges of positioning and performance facing young companies. Today, Ron is chairman of the software industry group of the Band of Angels, Silicon Valley's oldest angel investor organization, and he manages the band's mentoring programs. At the same time, as partner at Performance Works, he advises technology companies on market entry strategies in such areas as financial services, energy, healthcare, and media. He's also advised corporate venture funds and corporate innovation initiatives at Global 2000 companies. Ron was a partner for 17 years at Apex Partners, a global venture firm focusing on software and cross-border technology investments. And he managed its venture software portfolio after Apex became a private equity firm. Prior to Apex, he was CMO and head of investor relations at Verity, the leader at the time in the field of enterprise search. Speaking with my industry analyst hat on now, I can share that we watched Ron and the Verity management team increase the company's market cap from $50 million to nearly $2 billion profitably along the way, and get selected as a New York Times top 10 stock pick. Prior to Verity, Ron directed strategic and European marketing for Next, reporting to Steve Jobs. Currently, Ron invests in enterprise SaaS, analytics, vertical market software, and health IT. He's also a member of the Berkeley Angel Network and has advised or invested in over 60 companies and has served on over 30 boards worldwide. I'm very much looking forward to learning what Ron has to say to us today, and I'm confident that you will find his analysis insightful and his perspective rooted in practical guidance for understanding the business decisions we all face as the AI and cognitive computing phenomenon evolves. Let me remind you not to hesitate to participate actively in the Q&A, as Hannah suggested. We'll get to that session as soon as Ron is done completing his presentation. So without further ado from me, please join me in welcoming to the screen our guest, Dr. Ronald Weissman.
Hadley and Hannah, thank you very, very much. As a former college professor, I always like to give the class a sense as to the main points they're going to be learning. So here are the main points in today's presentation. You're going to be learning about crapware, zombies, killer robots, whether ML really means machine litigation, why we can get rid of lawyers, what's wrong with VCs, and most importantly, why would it have helped us today if the ancient Sumerians had learned how to drive? So these are the principal points I'll be covering this afternoon. Let's look at the big picture about where AI is going, a few predictions, and then for those of you who are looking to fundraise your AI startup, some tips on how to get funded. Big picture. The definition of AI that I like comes out of Woodside Capital. Artificial intelligence software performs complex tasks of learning and cognition at a level that matches or exceeds that of humans. And the definition incorporates all of the major branches of AI, which I assume you are as or more conversant with than I am. And I've added killer robots to the list because this is Silicon Valley's hot topic right now, with vigorous debates about to what extent we ought to be putting controls on AI before the machines kill us. Mark Zuckerberg has been poo-pooing the threat. Elon Musk says a cataclysm awaits us. And as true with everything relating to Silicon Valley, the hype, of course, far exceeds the reality. So what technologies are VCs funding? If you look where the dollar is going in 2016, by far over 2/3 of the money is going into machine learning. That's the big enchilada of VC funding. If you look at where customers are going to be spending their AI dollars, you can see the AI dollars growing by about a 40x to 50x between now and 2025. Where the money is going again is deep learning, and machine learning will be about 2/3 of the pie, way more than machine vision and NLP. I did a study of about 630 machine learning companies funded by VCs using data from Crunchbase Pro, and I selected the 72 companies that had raised $9 million or more as the serious companies to figure out where are the deals and where is the serious money going. And if you look at the number of deals, it's very much skewed towards e-commerce, sales, marketing enablement, and retailing. Number two would be platforms. Number three would be life sciences. But if you look at where the money is going into life sciences first, then platforms, and then sales and marketing. So it doesn't take a lot of money to build a sales and marketing AI startup, but it certainly takes a lot of money to focus on healthcare, and this has been true from time immemorial that healthcare companies consume typically lots and lots more money than most other startups. Looking ahead, where's the revenue going to come from in terms of vertical markets? Well, medical diagnostics and search are the biggies, followed by sales and marketing. Despite all the hype about autonomous vehicles, they're going to be consuming about 8% of the revenues. So we've seen a 5-fold increase in the past 12 years. 2012 was a breakpoint year for AI. The funding really began to accelerate in 2012, 2013. And in the past 5 years, you can see we are now in excess of about $6 billion a year in pure startup funding. So last year, which the data is fully available, there was $26 billion invested in AI, about 3/4 of which came from tech giants like Amazon, like Apple, like Microsoft, like IBM, in terms of their internal investment, as well as their merger and acquisition activity, as well as their corporate venture. The startups themselves received about 23% of all funding across since 2012. About $15 billion has been invested across an astonishing 2,200 deals. Last year, 492 venture funds invested, and that's probably about 2/3 of all the major venture funds out there. And the hottest new investing sector of corporate VCs, and 173 different corporations invested in AI via their corporate venture funds. Finally, let's look at exits. The best way to predict how much money is going to go into a sector is to look at how much money is going out of the sector. And in terms of outcomes, we had about 230 M&A deals, companies acquired since this explosion in 2012. Just 10% of all AI startups have gotten acquired. 30 in the first quarter of this year alone, and Google has been buying like crazy. The reasons for this, well, one are acqui-hires. You can't hire enough trained AI people or data scientists fast enough. And there is an arms race around algorithms and tools to power the majors, to power the Apples, the Amazons, and so forth. About 50% of all deals were for greater than $190 million. The average deal was about $466 million, but that's skewed because of billion-dollar purchases. Where's it going next? Well, we're going to be seeing continued platform buys, but we're also going to be seeing increasing acquisitions by financial services firms, insurance companies, major marketeers buying vertical market solutions. I think we're teeing up for an explosion of vertical M&A. Let's look at some predictions about where AI is going to continue to be extremely strong. I want to look at three areas. One is augmenting knowledge work. Second is data engineering. And the third is a new trend called insight as a service. The current target right now is no longer just the burger flippers or the gas station attendants. There are over 26 companies building automated burger flipping technology, but right now the real focus is on automating the work done by knowledge workers. And you can see some of the sectors here: law, customer service, sales, medical analysis, image analysis. These are very, very hot and quite well populated sectors. They'll continue to grow because there is so much automation to be done. So you all know Shakespeare's comment, first, kill all the lawyers. Well, today's slogan is, don't kill them, just replace them with bots. What law bots are doing today is one of the most expensive things that legal firms do is document review. In any case, they've got to sift through tens of thousands, perhaps more documents. They put highly paid associates doing that work. Increasingly, that work is being done by law bots. There is a new field called legal genomics, where you're trying to figure out the structure of a case, almost based on some archetypes, and then to match documents and evidence to the key points of the case automatically. We all know about legal search is exploding. My favorite recent trend is an app written by a 15-year-old in the United Kingdom called Do Not Pay. I assume some of you have heard of this. So far, Do Not Pay has overturned $9.3 million in traffic fines for almost 400,000 people. This month, this youngster in the UK launched 1,000 new bots, all addressable in plain English via natural language, where law bots can handle things like maternity leave disputes, landlord-tenant issues, and even refugee asylum applications. So this is one of the most dramatic uses of bots to augment or even replace knowledge work. The industries that are going to be affected most by these kinds of chatbots are e-commerce, where much customer service will be handled automatically; insurance, where claims management, where first call will be by a chatbot; healthcare, where the first triage may be by a chatbot on the phone as you call to describe your symptoms; retail, where chatbots will be the first line before you talk to a real salesperson, and so forth. And next is hospitality, where reservation systems and even hotel concierge services will be increasingly infiltrated by chatbots. Second major trend I want to highlight is data engineering. The massive explosion of machine learning, for it to actually work, requires a bunch of things that we don't quite yet have. One is a massive amount of data for training, and then once trained, for validation. And we'll talk about the worst case example of this in a minute. Now, small companies, mid-sized companies, don't even have massive data stores of their own to use for training, testing, and validation. They've got to buy it. We need engineers to curate, create, and prepare this data for machine learning. The senior computer scientist, one of the godfathers of contemporary AI, Doug Lynat, says that the biggest gap is going to be these data engineers, not just data scientists at a senior level, but the folks who actually make the data that the data scientists need. And of course, we're going to need hundreds of thousands of data scientists to build deep learning models. And as I'll suggest in a minute, we're also going to need some AI-savvy lawyers because machine learning is quite hard to explain to mere mortals, let alone judges and juries. So first is in the case of data, we need something like 9 billion miles of driving data for insurers to accurately underwrite autonomous vehicles, if we're going to be really fair. Human drivers kill about 1.09 people per 100 miles driven. if we were going to suggest that autonomous cars have no worse a safety record than that, the Rand Corporation estimates that we're going to need 8.8 billion miles of driver data to validate that car safety, and that's plus or minus 20 fatalities. Now, any fatality for an insurer can cost tens of millions of dollars to resolve. Now, if we want to get more precise, and we want to make sure that we are collecting this kind of data accurately, this is going to take us 400 years to collect just that data. We better start driving now. But I'd suggest if during the last year of Shakespeare's life we had started collecting driving data, we'd be fine today. But let's say we want to get more accurate, because plus or minus 20 fatalities is a lot. For greater precision, let's say plus or minus 5 fatalities. So we're doing a much tighter confidence interval. We're going to need 5,000 years of driving data. So just about the time the Sumerians learned how to write cuneiform, they should have been starting to drive to collect this data, because that's what we need to be. So massive amounts of data. So the Rand Corporation said, if we want to prove that autonomous cars are 20% better than humans, we're going to need to drive 11 billion miles to collect that kind of data on fatalities. So in addition to lots of data, we're going to need lots of data scientists. But for every data scientist we hire, we're going to be needing 10 data engineers. In IBM's QuantCrunch analysis, they call them data system developers. The rest of the world calls them data engineers. These are the people who collect, manage, process, clean, integrate, synthesize the data that's used for training, testing, and validation. So there are some solutions here. On the first, to reduce the need for data engineers, there's a whole family of data engineering tools that will automatically clean, synthesize, join, and otherwise prepare data for big data analysis. Boston's Tamer, it's a Mike Stonebreaker related company, is out there in the lead, but other great companies are Datamere, Databricks, Sentinai, and Astronomy, but there are dozens more in the way. How do you get data? If you don't have it, where do you go get it? Well, you can. There's two ways. You can go to a data exchange, or you can subscribe to data. And factory automation, the Industrial Revolution 4.0 people in factories are now creating synthetic data based on the factory data they've got and projecting the data they think they need. A number of companies are out there providing data exchanges or data as a service subscription platforms, including BDEX, Docs, QDatum, and Mighty AI. You can also submit a request for crowdsourced data, or you can subscribe to data as a service, data science as a service, where there are data scientists on tap who work part-time over the web as freelancers with the next market, data science as a service. The leader here is Kaggle, who was acquired by Google recently for lots of money. Other companies like Factual take a vertical market approach. But these are areas to keep up with: data engineering tools, data exchanges, and data science as a service, to find a way to overcome the shortages we've got. Last point is, and this is not a joke, we actually do need lawyers conversant with AI. As a California Supreme Court justice wrote this month, that if a regulator doesn't fully understand how a computer reached its decision, and remember, with deep learning, we have multiple layers of inference, it's really hard to explain or figure out what these neural networks are doing to ourselves or even to a mere mortal. We simply have to trust their results and the trust that the algorithmic background is correct. How do we explain to a judge or a jury how a computer came to a decision, particularly if it's a liability case? So we're going to need some really smart lawyers, and I realize that's an oxymoron, but we're going to need some really smart lawyers in this new world of AI-fueled litigation when things go wrong. Lastly, insight as a service. We have seen in almost every area of business software a movement from algorithms to tools, the collection of those tools into platforms where the tools work together, the use of those platforms in specialized solutions in vertical markets, and then finally, if you don't want to play with any of this stuff, you don't want to program, you don't want to run BI tools, you don't want to buy and install platforms, and you even don't want to buy vertical market solutions. You just want to say, how do I run my company better? There's a market for insights. So if we look at what's happened to AI deals from 2012 to the first quarter of 2017, darker spots are where the action is. We've seen healthcare, e-commerce, cybersecurity, BI, and sales and CRM be the hottest places to go. But you'll see this vertical market map where the vertical markets are on the horizontal axis is filling up quite nicely. So the hot thing right now in AI is not just platforms, but it's going deep and going vertical. Some of the hottest verticals, e-commerce, with customer chatbots, everything from shipping optimization to customer churn reduction, highly targeted marketing on individuals. Healthcare. Now, healthcare, of course, in the 60s, places like Stanford was one of the earliest AI markets. Remember old expert systems? Well, it's back. Lots of money going into cancer diagnostics, lots of money going in by IBM Watson in areas both in diagnostics and insurance fraud. Other AI companies, primarily startups, are focusing on compliance, personalized medicine, infectious disease surveillance, looking at how a disease travels to the population, remote patient monitoring once patients are home, a fancy word called pharmacovigilance, which means that once a pharma drug has been released into the market, post-clinical trials, you need to observe the market for symptoms of potential side effects. Telemedicine will be using chatbots, as will hospital admissions as the first call, to at least do an initial triage when call lines are overwhelmed. We're seeing warehousing being reinvented by companies like Walmart, everything from warehouse optimization to fuel optimization to even predicting when logistics devices are going to break down. Financial services, we've seen an explosion of robo-advisors. We're seeing the explosion of branchless banking, and the banks in Massachusetts have actually been taking the lead in shutting down branch activity for things like home mortgages, where some banks are doing this entirely online. Of course, compliance and identity management. An area that's quickly becoming overfilled and overfunded is agriculture, of all things, where there are dozens of startups doing image analysis, many of them with their own fleets of drones to do things like crop and soil health analysis, yield and harvest forecasting. If you can figure out when to plant and when to harvest, an individual farmer can save hundreds of thousands of dollars on chemicals. And then, of course, agricultural robots for harvesting and for monitoring becoming a very, very big deal. So what's insight as a service? If we assume that AI is going mainstream and lots of companies can't afford data scientists or big data projects, and we have a big data shortage, and we have a data scientist shortage, what about subscribing to insights as a service? So we've got data as a service, which basically means, hey, find me some data. Or analytics as a service, help me analyze that data. What's really important now is finished intelligence, not raw data that you've got to analyze, but finished intelligence, insight as a service. Basically, tell me how to improve my business. A great example of this is what's going on in what's called predictive analytics as a service now in the oil and gas industry. A company called eLinks out of Tulsa understands that now that oil has gone from $100 a barrel to under $50 a barrel, it is imperative that companies maximize production at the lowest cost per barrel. Shell oil almost had a death moment in 2013 when oil prices crashed. And by adopting this kind of technology, they hope to dig themselves out of what was a very big hole. Bad joke, sorry. So what oil and gas people want to do is to monitor and manage the settings on a well. And this is called artificial lift, pumping stuff into the ground, increasing pressure to get more oil out. That is dangerous. It requires expensive chemicals, and you don't want people on site for health and safety issues, and you absolutely want to reduce all these awful chemicals for environmental benefits. So what you want to be able to do is monitor via sensors the status of what's going on downhole, and then find the best solution to improve production. So the strategy is to use machine learning to develop a digital twin, a fully digitized model of an oil well, using vast amounts of historical data and real-time data happening right now. This company I've mentioned, eLinx, has data from 24,000 wells, 10-year histories, and plus real-time data, and then they use that together with a customer's own data to make predictions on what you should do to improve production. So essentially, you're not subscribing to an oil well. It's a cloud-based service. It includes everything from high-quality data cleaned by their people, data scientist-based machine learning models, analytics they perform, and real-time alerting and reporting. So what do you get as an oil company managing an oil field? You get recommendations that on well 34, turn the gas pressure up by 2%. And they're already seeing that small changes can have dramatic increases in production. So again, rather than having oil companies do this analysis themselves, the whole thing is now becoming outsourced to select suppliers. That's what Insight as a Service is. It's not about data. It's not about an analytics. It's about a recommendation for how to make your business run better. So I expect that a number of you in the room are really intrigued and excited by the continuing progress in AI. I know I am. So what's going on in the venture market in terms of how to get funded? Let's first spend a minute talking about venture capitalists. Our mission is to pick the best deals based on balancing risk and reward. It's not to build the next big thing. It is not social good in most cases, although we'd like those things to happen. We have to pay back pension funds, university endowments, who invested in us so they can pay their workers' pensions. And if we don't deliver, there is a shortfall in pension funds. So they've got to deliver in the range of 5x to 10x the money that they're given in order to meet their obligations. But there's negatives here because VCs, as one person once said, are a herd of independent thinkers. If Deborah's investing in a field, well, then John and Bob are going to do it too. And it leads to massive overinvestment. The problem is that most technology markets are winner take all. 3, 4, 5 companies get all the M&A dollars. They get to partnership with the big boys. They get to IPO. And in most markets where there are 50 companies, there are 2, 3, 4 winners. There are a lot of zombies out there that aren't going to die but are never going to succeed either. In understanding VCs, go to their websites. Understand their investment philosophy. Some VCs, you can ask, what do you invest in? Stuff I like. What do you like? What interests me? What interests you? Cool deals. Well, they're reactive. An exciting deal that walks in the door, they might invest in. The opposite are thesis-based investors like me, where I've got a thesis, again, for example, that data engineering tools are a very, very big sector, going to be very, very important. We come up with an idea. We actively search companies that fit that thesis and invest in what we think are the best couple. There's the first mover. I'm going to invest in the first company in the space. And then there are VCs who say, you know, I'm really terrible at guessing winners. So I'm just going to wait for a company that's $9 or $10 million in revenues, and they may be the last man standing in the early space, and I'll just pump money into them. When we do diligence on you, it's not just about the algorithm or the product. It's much more about the business and the team. And then finally, remember that our mission is to make 5 to 10 times our money on each deal. That's our goal, because normally 9 out of 10 deals fail. And at least if we make, if 1 out of 10 succeeds wildly, we paid back our mistakes and made some money for our investors. So to conclude, let's talk about the end of AI. Mark Andreessen of Andreessen Horowitz, one of the founders of Netscape and the guy who invented Mosaic, the world's first web browser, said a few years ago, software is eating the world. Well, today, AI is eating software. I see dozens of presentations a month. It is rare now that a company doing a software pitch doesn't tell me that they're really powered by AI. Most of this is old wine in new bottles. Most of this is hype, and it's getting increasing. We have to spend increasing amounts of time to figure out if there really is anything here. But it's the rare software company that doesn't claim that they're all about machine learning. So, I'm aware of with the crapware invasion, is now everything claims to be powered by AI, and very little actually is. We've been investing for 5 years. We've done thousands of deals. Probably by the end of this year, there'll probably be at least 3,000 deals. Investor fatigue is coming. It always does. Where investors are tired of hearing the same pitch over and over and over again. And besides, most VCs already have their bet in the space. AI is going to disappear if it's successful. How many of us talk with excitement about our office telephone system or a wiring closet? Well, I remember when I was running computer centers at the University of Maryland and then at Brown, how excited we were about campus networking and about rewiring the campus the last mile. Anybody talk about that now? No, it's succeeded. It's now part of the infrastructure. It's as exciting as wallpaper. So AI is going to disappear if it's successful. It's already disappearing into embedded systems like driverless cars and computer vision. It's going to disappear. People will stop talking about AI, and they will talk about insurance rating systems, credit scoring systems, diagnostic systems. Yes, they're powered by AI, but what's important is the diagnostics or the credit rating, not the machine learning. That will be taken for granted. And we're going to see AI companies disappear. Consolidation invariably happens in crowded markets. And I expect over the next 2 to 3 years, we've already seen some AI companies just flat out die. We're going to see a lot of consolidation, M&A between AI companies, and a lot of companies that neither live nor die. The zombies have enough money to live, but not enough money to succeed. So what does this mean for you if you're fundraising? AI is exploding and a maturing market. So getting funded today requires a different strategy than companies 5 years ago. It's not just about your vision, whether computer vision or business vision. VCs already have AI bets. You need to figure out how you fit in with their existing portfolio. Do you leverage the investments they've already made? Because they're going to be asking their existing AI companies to evaluate you. You need to showcase really top-tier technical talent in algorithm development, data science, because your competitors are already making a big deal, both to show intellectual superiority and potentially to set themselves up for an acqui-hire, to be acquired for their talent as much as for their algorithms. We are moving from the world of early adopters who buy tools to mainstream buyers, some of whom don't even understand AI at all, who simply want to solve problems. So to solve a problem, you need to know a vertical market in your bones. So my message, avoid overcrowded AI markets unless you are demonstrably 10 times better. Build use cases and validate them by partnering with actual customers, real people. I'm tired of hearing AI companies say, we're going to win in the market because our chief technology officer went to MIT or Stanford. I really want to know is, are you working with real customers, and do they agree that the problem you're solving is an important one? And finally, demonstrate better outcomes than the other guys, because this really matters. Does your credit scoring algorithm actually predict better credit risk? Does your fraud analytic actually capture different kinds of fraud than have ever been done before, and so forth? So if you do these things, particularly about demonstrating better outcomes, you have a great chance of getting funded. Well, that's my message today. The market's a great one. It's still hot, but be prepared for shifts and dips, and as I said, some increasing investor fatigue. So really show that you've got truly exciting, class-leading stuff, and you'll have a great chance of joining the 1% of companies that actually get funded. Thanks very much, and we're now open for questions.
Thank you, Ron. And now we will be entering the questions section of the program. So if you have a question, please feel free to either raise your hand or type a question into the chat at the bottom. I have not received any questions from the crowd, but I do know that Hadley has a few.
Hey, Ron. Thanks very much for that sort of blast through the whole space. That was extremely insightful, as I predicted. I had a question relating to industries. You mentioned that the history of software markets and their adoption maturity patterns. And in most of those cycles, various industry groups have tended to move together and at a fairly predictable sequence as the market developed. We're all used to hearing that the financial services firms have built their own latest and greatest widget in some particular area, while the education industry is still trying to figure out how to get a PC into the classroom. So I'm wondering today if you think the order of events might actually reverse a bit in the AI space. I note, for example, that your analysis that shows the healthcare life science market receiving a major portion of both VC investment dollars and the projected AI revenue in the early market. Whereas that industry, at least the healthcare part, as opposed to perhaps the life sciences part, is a traditional laggard in adopting new technologies. We know that IBM, of course, has placed a huge bet creating a whole division called Watson Health. But I'm wondering whether you think the healthcare and life sciences market can actually become a leader for a change.
Well, I think that there's some things that have happened to healthcare. It's a great question. And if you look at hospital systems, in hospital, you will see that up until the Affordable Care Act, they were laggards. And remember that the Affordable Care Act forced clinicians to adopt electronic health records. And in the past several years, you get penalized if you don't, in terms of things like Medicare reimbursement and so forth. So the market changed in hospital around EHRs. That created a massive data flood waiting to be exploited. In terms of medical research, they have often been on the leading edge. They and Big Pharma have been on the leading edge. Remember, as I said, that some of the earliest work in AI expert systems was around healthcare diagnostics, and that goes back to the 60s and 70s. So you have to look at healthcare in terms of its constituent parts. The hospital systems have been the hardest to change, but EHRs and other mandates and a new class of software around what's called HL7, which is a data integration standard across hospital systems and medical records, is changing that a bit. But again, hospitals tend to be risk averse. They don't want killing patients via technology, but the wave is hit. So I think they are positioned to be a leader here. Other industries have historically been laggards. Probably the most brain-dead industry in terms of computer adoption was for years the insurance industry, where there are still AS400s running systems at major insurance companies. But they, in the past 3 or 4 years, have really tried to play catch-up and to leapfrog lots of older technologies and really embrace pretty dramatically new technology. And remember that insurance is being hit massively by new models of insurance for cars. They're now experimenting with how many miles you drive and how well you drive as a way of rating you, as opposed to simply what kind of car do you have. And autonomous cars are going to utterly disrupt the insurance industry. They know it. There are now insurance incubators and accelerators for startups, and many major insurers have their own corporate venture funds. So that's changing big time. So I think you're absolutely right, Hadley, that the stack ranking of industries will change a bit. But guess what? Financial services was about the earliest into this market, just as you would expect. Great question.
We have another question from Jana Eggers, which is, where do you see opportunities in AI markets for a 10x improvement?
Hannah, you said for what kind of improvement?
10x improvement.
Once you type that to me, I still couldn't understand it. That's me, it's not you.
Sure.
A 10x improvement, absolutely. A 10x improvement. I think anything in the logistics field where you can certainly manage time a lot more efficiently by reducing the number of process steps, reducing the number of people in the process, reducing the decision loop, is certainly an area we're seeing in areas like maritime navigation, maritime fuel, maritime safety, fairly dramatic improvements. I don't know if they're 10x or not, but the early work going on suggests significant rates of decline relating to safety, relating to fuel economy. In the farming sector, using AI to better predict when you should plant, when you should harvest, is already having a dramatic effect on getting rid of chemicals and timing yields a lot better. I'm not sure it's going to be a 10x improvement, but I think that some of the individual factors, like chemical use, could definitely see fairly dramatic improvements. The 10x, when I mentioned 10x in my last slide, I wasn't speaking so much of a 10x improvement in the market, but a 10 times better improvement in some aspect of one startup compared to other startups in the status quo. That doesn't necessarily yield a 10x improvement for the overall market, but it certainly might be. You might be able to use 10 times the amount of data using smart compression than the other guy can in the same amount of time. So, but I do think 10x is a great measure. One of the things that's disappointing about the AI community today is so much the focus is on inputs as opposed to outputs. It's our methodology is brilliant, our algorithms are doing things nobody else has done before, and similarly a kind of data we never used. But again, show me, I'm from Missouri, what were the results? And there's been absolutely less focus on what the results have done to change the market than why we should believe that the inputs are so exciting. So that's a challenge to the AI community, is to get a lot better on measuring outcomes.
Great, thank you. We have another question from Allison Doe, which is, how do you think the ICO marketplace will impact investing overall? And is this just a hot trend or something more long-lasting?
Great question. We're now seeing a number of venture funds focusing specifically on this next generation of finance. I would say the hype is right now very, very high. We've got to make sure that we understand, one, the regulators and the international banking community will support rather than frustrate it, and second, that we really are on top of the detailed processing required for things like settlements and so forth. It sounds interesting. We need a few early adopters, primarily big banks, to bless it, and then we're on our way.
Great. We have another question from Charles Delizio, which is, what are the issues to broader AI adoption?
First issue, I've been talking actually to any number of CTOs. I talked to a CTO of a major company last week And he said, look, Ron, we do not know two things about machine learning. We've heard a lot of the hype, but we don't know how it works, and we really don't know what it can do for us. So the early adopters get it, but we're now approaching the mainstream market, and there needs to be a lot of evangelization going on. So I think those are the two biggest obstacles, and that's why having more ready-to-run vertical solutions that are powered by ML or computer vision or related technologies is going to make all the difference in the world. But right now, like many markets in their initial phases, we are selling technology. We're not selling business problem solutions. And once we start doing that, and once we stop talking about AI and start talking about value, I think we're going to see a lot more mainstream adoption. But a couple of my CTOs said, you know, we just understand how it works. We're not really sure how to trust it. I got to say, trust is the third issue. That the system tells you to do X, Y, and Z, and that may be pretty radical for you. You never trusted a machine to tell you how to run your business. And how do we know we're not going to break something? So it's going to take early adopters proving outcomes, not just that they're using it, but that they're using it safely and well and in a trusted way.
Great, thank you. At this time, we don't have any other questions from the crowd. I did get a couple questions about the presentation, and both the recording of this webinar and the presentation will be available on the Cognitive Computing Consortium website under the Resources tab, just so you all know. They'll likely be up sometime tomorrow, and we'll also be sending around an email to all of our members with links to download the information. So if there are no further questions, I just want to thank Ron again for his time today, for putting this presentation together, and thank you all for joining.